Okay, good afternoon and welcome everyone to our Distinguished Speaker Series event today featuring Phil Snow, the CEO of FactSet Research Systems. I'm Chris Vincent, CEO of the Society. We're live at the W Hotel in downtown Chicago and in the heart of the financial district. I don't know, I had caught someone earlier. This is where the Society, Phil, used to have its luncheons way back in the day, and they were not as sophisticated, not as advanced as we are now today. I also want to welcome those on the webcast. Hello, thanks for joining us. At today's lunch, we'd ask you to be respectful of your fellow attendees' personal space, and we'd also like to ask if you want to tweet. Our handle is at CFA_Chicago. Our next Distinguished Speaker Series event is on March 10th. It's a luncheon featuring Orlando Bravo, the co-founder and managing partner of private equity firm Thoma Bravo. Our upcoming events are on www.cfachicago.org. On behalf of the Society, thank you for being here today and thank you for supporting our events. So we're very happy and very proud to have Phil join us today. He's been the CEO of FactSet since 2015. He began his career at FactSet in 1996 in the Asia Pacific region, and he subsequently held various leadership roles within the global content sales and America sales. He is passionate about diversity and inclusion in the workplace, and we'll get to that in our conversation. As noted earlier, Phil is a CFA charter holder and a member of CFA Institute. Would you join me in welcoming Phil to Chicago? Thank you for being here.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know about the distinguished part, though, Chris.
In our book, you are, and your firm is, and you're a charter holder, so you're welcome here at any point in time. If you don't mind, I want to thank a few people. This was not. These don't happen with the snap of a finger, and I'd like to thank a few people. Some I hope maybe are on the webcast, but I'd like to thank Dan and Allison at CFA Institute in New York, Leah in Charlottesville, Phil's the FactSet team, including Kendra and Michelle, were absolutely fantastic in putting this together. Our local staff, Kim and Pari and Larissa, that are expert in planning and execution of our events. And last but not least, the co-chairs of the Distinguished Speaker Series, Nick and Arthur. So let's get started. As we envisioned and contemplated this piece, we had ground rules about, we want to talk about the industry. We might not name specific competitors. We may, but that's sort of the ground rules. Phil, we always like to get a CFA's on the record, their journey, their
Sure.
CFA journey, their experience, how you came about becoming a CFA charter holder. Would you give us a few?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if it was a typical path, but I studied chemistry as an undergrad and had a few jobs in the biotech industry, went over to South Korea, taught English, and at the age of 30 still had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went to business school, which seemed like a good way to stall for 2 years. I ended up at an international management program, and I was interested in studying Japanese and learning more about the Asia Pacific region. And I had a choice really of a finance or a marketing track, and finance for me seemed like a good fit. It was more quantitative. And I had a professor there, Frank Tuzolino, who used Bodie, Kane, and Marcus as basically the textbook, and all of the tests were CFA tests. So his advice was, go get a CFA, and it was very easy to pass level 1 because we'd just done that. And then I became, you had to become a member of a society, so I joined the Security Analysts of San Francisco, where I was living. And in the newsletter, which I was getting, FactSet used to recruit consultants from there. So that was really where I found, the opportunity to join FactSet. My plan was join FactSet, which has a great CFA culture, get my CFA, and then join a firm on the buy side or the sell side. And it Clearly didn't work out that way, but that's essentially, that's my accidental CFA journey. Yeah.
So the local society, CFA San Francisco, was somewhat instrumental in your...
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I never would have found FactSet. Like, who'd heard of this company that was 60 people, over 100 people, you know, maybe 60 million in revenue. And in San Francisco at that time, we had maybe 10 engineers and a couple of salespeople, and just a small office in San Mateo. I'm sure all of you have been flown in there at some point, and we're very close to the airport, so. That's how I started.
We like that local society connection. We got our soundbite for marketing purposes. You also, I think I saw you do a panel for CFA New York, and you did do test prep with
Bob Stala, yeah.
With Bob Stala.
Famous Bob Stala.
Any Stala people in the room? Anybody know? All right, well, it's good. We know what the genre is here. We know what era we took. Stala was a whirling dervish, and really was instrumental in taught here. I've definitely had him. So you found FactSet. Any takeaways from Asia? Any takeaways from the financial services ecosystem in Asia? Any compare or contrast between the Americas? Now, you were there in the 90s?
Yeah, it was the late 90s.
Late 90s.
So it was a long time ago. And I actually started in California for 2 years and then went over to Japan and to Sydney. But it did seem different, the investment process and how people were using our product. So it seemed a little bit more bottoms up here in terms of the analysis and more sort of top down. And very quantitative in Japan, frankly. Some of the models that clients were building were really pretty sophisticated at that
So
time.
you were in Japan, you were in Tokyo, and were you in?
And I was in Sydney, so we already had a Japan office. I helped launch Sydney and Hong Kong. So we had one person in each location, and I was kind of the jack of all trades there and a couple of salespeople. And got to visit clients all over the region, which was really fun. I did FactSet's first demo in mainland China, so I went to Beijing. And on like a 9600 baud line, tried to show our Excel link, which popped into the Chinese version of Excel and worked very well. But I was skeptical that it would in front of these 40 bankers, but that was a lot of fun.
I love the terminology they use, the region. And yeah. I was in HK, my first trip there, and some credit rating agency folks said, well, if you're going to be in HK, then we'll just pop in. And I'm like, okay, I figured they were in HK. And they show up with a team of 6, and they're like, I said, how long was your flight? And they're like, 6-8 hours from Sydney, but you're in the region, so we'll get there,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the thing that I liked about Asia was the fixed income. There's 50% of the CIOs come from the fixed income discipline, and I'm a little biased, I will admit. Right, but there's an orientation that fixed income. There's an appreciation for the skill set there, I think.
Sure.
So, okay, you mentioned the culture, the CFA culture at FactSet, mm-hmm. And we went to extreme lengths, and we never did get. The lore, the myth is that there was a wall. Maybe at one of your Connecticut offices.
Yeah, there were definitely, if you had a CFA charter holder, we did have walls in different offices of everyone that had those, and we've moved around a lot since then, so we don't have that. But we have, we've probably had hundreds, if not 1,000 CFAs come through FactSet. I think today we've got probably over 150 people that have their CFA charter at our company. We're about 10,000 people globally. And we're very supportive, so we support people through the tests. We give people time off to study for the tests, and I think historically we've given bonuses out even as you pass different levels. And we've got people in sales, people in engineering have gone on to get their CFAs, people in product, and it's globally. It's not just here in the Americas. So it's really good that our entire company sort of understands the investment process. And I'm always inspired when I see an engineer, right, that wants to go out and go through the hell of getting the CFA in addition to everything else they do. just because they want to do their job better. So that's really been ingrained in us from the beginning.
We appreciate that. Well, your predecessor, CEO, was a guy named Phil.
Sure, yeah. So anyone that's called Phil that has a CFA, you've got a good shot.
Seems to be working out for you. So, well, we appreciate that. We show your numbers as maybe 200 current.
Yeah.
But your candidate population is close to 300.
Yeah.
And they've had a little bit of a hard track with a shift to computer-based testing and also the interruption of testing.
Yeah.
And that has been a challenge. So, but supporting candidates is a big deal, and we love it when we hear that a CEO is a charter holder, but also that the culture is there. Yep. I talked to a guy named Jeff Spector, and I was trying to get
Jeff.
I was trying to get a little intel. I don't know if that I see in the in-person audience somebody chuckling about him, and we were going back and forth on LinkedIn trying to compare notes about the journey. Let's turn to Phil, somewhat the concept of the industry. We'll talk about industry trends in a minute, but I think it'd be helpful for our audiences to hear you talk about the financial services ecosystem in Chicago, how you view selling into this market, or the evolution here. We'll talk about trends, but Chicago is a diverse community. It's a diverse financial services ecosystem.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And my job is for our people to be working, to have jobs and careers, and where those jobs come from. And there's a challenge in asset management, right? We'll talk a little bit about the challenges in asset management. But from 30,000 feet or however many feet up or down you want to talk about it, you must have you've been here a day or two, you've been visiting some clients. So could you share with our audience how you view Chicago?
Well, I mean, I think it's a great city for FactSet. We have a very strong office here, and we've got a very strong client base. And as you mentioned, it's a diverse client base. So we've got, institutional asset managers, asset owners, banks, private equity firms, hedge funds, and even corporations, right? These are all firms that FactSet sells to effectively with our workflows. So I think we view this as a great city. Historically, it's been a bit of a hub and spoke for us for the Midwest, but I think we're all going through an evolution in terms of our talent. So, we serve Minneapolis from Chicago or Wisconsin, right? So. But people are moving now to those states because we can work more virtually. So I think in some ways you may lose some talent from Chicago in that way, but I think every city has an opportunity to lead when it comes to being hybrid. And you have an opportunity for people to get jobs in Chicago where they're maybe working for firms in other cities. So I would think of it in that way. And that's how I'm thinking about talent. And what do we need to do to make sure that we have talent distributed globally to serve our clients most effectively, and how do we make sure that we have the right balance for our employees in terms of their life. So I think the days of us all going into a metropolis for 4 or 5 days a week, we know those are over. So it's a question of, in Chicago, what do you do in this area to make it appealing for employees to come in? So we met in our offices yesterday. I met with engineers, with sales, with consulting, and asked each group, what's going to attract you to the office? Like, what would you do in the office versus what you can do at home? It's not clear. We got to solve for that. But I think the city itself and all of your firms have to think about that if you want Chicago to be, more competitive, with other cities in the future. So.
Yeah, that's a big topic, right? That's a big topic, maybe beyond our scope here. But the concept of when you said sales and engineering and product, like where your charter holders work, for us, and we talked a little bit about it as we developed the agenda for today. The growth in asset management is a very, very, very low organic growth rate, if not stable.
Right.
News. my former organization and your organization, we were talking about, news coming out of a fixed income platform. So where the charter is valued, though, is so encouraging. Right, and when you say sales and engineering product, this was a test that was designed in 1963 to analyze. As I say, our first two clients were, Jane at Northern covering IBM and Joe at Harris covering GM,
Yep.
and that ship has sailed.
Yep.
So I mean, I'm proud that on our board, right, we have MSCI and we have S&P DJI, right. And so, and a local company by the name of Morningstar. So we have the data analytic research space.
Do you think the CFA curriculum is keeping up with the demands of the market? So I think it's getting more and more quantitative, right? And the tools that I use to work and the tools that maybe you used early in your career, those are changing for the next generation. So.
For sure.
And the CFA was sort of just the one thing at FactSet that you could do in terms of, maybe pursuing something outside of, just what you're doing at work. But I think we have to offer, broader ways in terms of learning and development, not just the CFA. So I think there's an opportunity to get in front of that and not be disrupted.
And for sure we are trying, and when I say we, I'm talking about the broader ecosystem. I mean, we have board members at the institute level here and at my local level here, and there is no question that the test has evolved. I would we as a board, we have CFA Institute. We want them to visit us every 18 to 24 months so that we can look at our membership and say, we understand how the test is evolving. There was no ESG on the test when you took it and when I took it, right?
Right.
And so now there is ESG.
Yeah.
It'll be a certain. It'll never grow to be too big because there's an ESG certificate. But yeah, it's evolving. And I had this discussion with the CEO of CFA Institute the other day. I said, in my work, and I say this to you, and I think I'm hearing you say this theme, Phil. I hear two things when people talk about the charter. One is capital markets, broad capital markets savvy and experience and knowledge, and the other is grit to get through it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. The other aspect of it, though, and you must see this, and talent will be interspersed in our whole conversation here. The charter used to be, I don't know about for you and me. You have a STEM background. You have a STEM undergraduate hard skill, and I am a business administration person. But the idea of the charter used to serve someone throughout their career.
Right.
It was a union card for an outstanding career. No longer.
Right.
It's table stakes to get in. You concur, right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true.
Yeah. Okay, so let's turn to what we in Chicago have been working on, and that is what we call the business of data. And when we were going through our setup conversations and establishing the premise, I was talking to Kendra, and I was saying, I have asset management CEOs that were very much concerned about passive ETF fee compression, the top line, the revenue challenge.
Yep.
That was coming, that was on the flank, and then it was full in force. But they pivoted to, Chris, I can. If I have the data and I create products that are better, I can fight that. But my data costs, my data costs are going up, right? And for me, that's two sides of the same coin. It's like the asset management is saying my data cost is going up, but as I said, we think maybe 8% of our folks out here are involved in data. My question to you about FactSet is, and I've had this conversation with some people locally, is in similar firms, is FactSet a data company? Is it a research company, or is it a tech company?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a tough one to answer. We're a platform company, and I would say that there are 3 layers to the platform. And I will say that the most valuable thing that FactSet has in terms of, for the industry and in terms of a moat is the data. So for 4 decades plus, we've been onboarding data into this platform. That hasn't changed, so our business model has evolved, but it's not changed that much. And we have 4 decades of history of collecting our own data. In fact, we started off just integrating other people's data into the platform. So we wrote very good software and had very good service, and we're on mainframes in the cloud right from the beginning. But over time, we've started to collect a lot of our own data. So we have 5,000 people in the business of collecting data. It's engineers or just data collectors. We have over 800 third parties that contribute data into the platform. And then clients trust us with their data. So we've been uploading portfolios since the 90s and lots of other data for clients. So we're in the business of managing data. So it's not just having a library of information that you can pick from, it's what you do with that. So organizing the data, tying it to an entity data map, and then providing software and service on top of that and distributing it in ways clients want. So, the content is the key, and creating a platform where content is attracted into the platform for whatever reason. That's really what we're focused on. And we've been able to maintain sort of one platform as a company, which I think has been good advantage and one that has allowed us to stay agile.
So we had an outstanding event called the Business of Data at last fall on 9/30, and one of the themes that was one of the first questions that came out was if there's a democratization of data, why does it cost so much for me to have my Bloomberg or FactSet? But the response was, and in particular with your firm, it was flexibility, the pipes, and you called it a moat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are many. I mean, probably it's easier to get certain types of data now cheaper than you could 10 years ago. But the asset managers need more and more data to find alpha or to go faster, and that's where FactSet comes in. We'll be able to get institutional quality data before other firms and then tie it to all the other data you care about. So pick your firm, but you have a lot of people spending time getting the data ready so that you can analyze it as an analyst. And very often that's more expensive than the analysts themselves. So if we can help asset managers do that, that's a winning formula for us. So really, our pitch to investment management firms now is not just, hey, take some FactSet workstations, but we're an enterprise software company now where we can come in, sit down with, I talk to CTOs all the time. Whereas 5 years ago, I didn't talk to CTOs, and I'll bring the tech team in, we'll blueprint their technology stack with our engineers, so we have sales engineers going into clients, and we'll overlay FactSet's capabilities and say, we can help you in these areas in terms of workflow and data, and you need to consolidate. Almost all of us, all firms that are the reason they have such high data costs is they're probably relying on too many providers, and if you can consolidate, sure, you'll pay FactSet more money, but it should be a win-win if you're able to do that efficiently.
I grew up on the fixed income side of things, so I know my equity colleagues and my banking, my iBankers were very much users of your system. Let's stay. Did you say 5,000 in the data kind of space out of 10?
Plus 10 plus.
Out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that's a little bit too manual. I mean, we have very talented people collecting data. We have very good tools for them. They make a lot of decisions every day as they're collecting it. But it still is a bit of a model of, the machines helping the humans, whereas we have to get the machines to do more. So we're re-architecting our data layer. We're making a push into private markets, and the amount of data that we'll need to collect from private markets versus public is probably 100 times. So our existing model won't work. So we have to re-architect how we collect data to be able to do that efficiently. So any technology company is obviously going to have to reinvest to do these things. And sometimes it's easier for the startup to do it because they can start from nothing with the latest and greatest, and whereas you have a legacy platform, you've got to evolve. So that's part of the fun of it.
So the data revolution and the insatiable desire to have data is, we're going to talk about that a little bit in a second, but we see locally here, right? We see locally here, it's not confidential. I've had these conversations, SIBO Global Markets wanting to monetize their data, right? Their information,
okay.
Right? And so, and they ask us to. They say, I want CFAs as raw material, and then I want to teach them coding and what have you to tease out alpha, what have you. So one of the concepts that we explored in our Business of Data event was, where are we at between data, the amount, and I mean the data that's being created, right, versus the people or talent and the tools, that combination of which of those silos is leading the pack, right? Which is there's a tremendous amount of data, but are the people, is the talent keeping pace? Is the demand for data scientists and outstripping the amount of data that needs to be?
I think it's data, tools,
evaluated.
talent, probably. Yeah, so.
Data, tools, talent.
Yeah, that's how I would rank it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I do think that we're just gonna have to train people differently to, like in schools, to be able to look at this data. So obviously there's a war for talent for lots of different types of jobs, particularly in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could do with some more data scientists and some more, machine learning and artificial intelligence engineers. There's a massive demand for that, right?
Yeah.
So gleaning insights from the data is hard, and having a good cognitive strategy and knowing what problems to point cognitive at and how to do it. The firms in our field that are going to win in the future are the ones that can do that in the interface. So if you're a PM and you're trying to sift through everything that's happening, the winning firm will be able to push you things, right? Rather than you configuring and pulling things out. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about how can we be the best co-pilot we can be for a portfolio manager or a wealth advisor or an investment banker, where we can suggest things to them. We've begun to do that in the wealth space. So we have something called advisor dashboards. So if you're a wealth advisor and you're managing, let's say, 150 families or individuals, we'll give you the 10 next best actions that we think you should do that day based on, what we see out there, rather than you figuring it out.
You mentioned, you used the word trust, mm-hmm. right? That the ecosystem trusts your company with portfolios, right?
Yeah.
And that's a fascinating topic. The CFA Institute does a lot with the Edelman Trust Survey every other couple of years, and it is very prominent in the institutional marketplace, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. that institutional investors' trust of a company that's using data and technology is higher, mm-hmm. and it's demonstrable. The figures are very demonstrable, mm-hmm. and it's starting to change a little bit on the private wealth side as too. Mm. The Institute's take is it's not just technology and it's not just a human. It's the theme is AI and HI, right? Artificial intelligence and human intelligence. You have to have actionable items that you can get out of it, mm-hmm. right? So, let's talk about the trends in the industry, right? Some of the themes that are playing out, and I'm going to run down the litany, and then you can pick and choose kind of which topics might be interesting or fun or relevant for our audiences. Today's news. I was waiting to get my chai tea latte, and if this doesn't summarize some things, on my phone, of course, it says BlackRock launching private wealth management ESG indexes in the UK. So there you can get 3 or 4 themes right off the bat. But the consolidation of the buy side and the rise of private wealth management, ESG, right? You guys acquired in the space. ESG standards is a huge topic. The Institute is doing a lot there. Private markets, we should probably talk about private markets, right? Alternative data becoming core climate data, regulation, right? Family office disintermediating traditional PE, crypto. You must have some thoughts on some of these, and let's
yeah, that's a lot. So
that is.
Can we focus?
Wait a minute, that's just the first page. Well,
in terms of our strategy as a company, like 3 years ago, we obviously, Heritage was in equity, moved into fixed income a couple of decades ago. Actually, that started with the acquisition of Derivative Solutions here in Chicago. So we made a lot of progress in public markets, but 3 years ago, we set out to reinvest in the tech stacks and move to the cloud, open up the platform, re-architect the data layer, and then the 3 or 4 areas of content that we committed to were private markets, the wealth space, ESG, and something called deep sector, which is some data that competes very well within the investment banking area. So those were where we saw the trends and the opportunity for us, and each of them obviously has a lot of depth to it.
So let's talk about the private markets.
Yeah.
In January, 2 headline Wall Street Journal stories about the new regulatory regime, the SEC wanting to require more information. Yeah. They're too big, right? Either private funds or private companies. They don't come public, right?
Yep.
And they're too big. They have an impact. And the SEC, with the change in the political landscape, says we need information now. Now, from our Business of Data event, we know that regulation creates a need for data, right? The regulatory regimes, right? So do you have so are you agnostic on regulation, generally speaking?
Pretty much. I mean, it helps us if there's regulation that says companies need to disclose information in a more consistent way. That makes it easier for us to kind of get the data and connect it to the other data in our ecosystem. So that helps. I mean, on the ESG side, that'll help us. So if there are standards there, we think we'll be able to pull data together and be more competitive in the ESG space.
So your ESG strategy is more of a flexible. You have a product, but it's buy, build, or make. In the ESG space. And we had this the other day from one of our programming, CFA Women's ESG panel. It was the concept of, well, does somebody trust me if I go out and say, these are my proprietary scores? Are you ranking your portfolio, your portfolio
right.
companies higher or not? But your strategy has been to...
It's to provide choice, which FactSet has always done. We've always sort of been driven by client demand. So there are, I think, almost 20 different ESG providers in our platform now. So the value we're providing there is you can get whatever combination of things you want to build your own ESG metrics or dashboard as an asset manager. We think about half of the firms are doing that now. So where FactSet helps is, one-stop shop for your ESG data. We do all the concordance on the symbology. We connect it to the other data on our platform. So it really just takes that nightmare away from you of sourcing all of this stuff yourself, because I don't think there is one source of truth, right? And I think there's still a debate as to whether or not there's alpha, right, in ESG. I'm sure lots of people in this room are thinking about that and testing that. It may not matter that there's alpha or not, like you may just have to do it anyway. The other thing we acquired was True Value Labs, and that's a little bit of a different approach, but it's kind of a technology company that looks at not what a company's saying about itself, but we scrape all the information that's out there in the market about a company, whether it's through news things, regulatory filings, legal, whatever, to build more of a real-time view or score of a company. So that's the piece that we own, but we're committed to, being neutral and understand that clients are going to want a lot of choice here. So that's our strategy.
Yeah, and I think the concept of it's not what the company is saying, it's we're going to scrape, right? So that to me is very interesting. Let me ask you, and you can you can give me an answer or not, but do you pay attention to your ESG score?
Yes, I think every company and CEO has to. We're all going to have, we're spending a lot of time thinking about our own sustainability report, and even though you might look at a company like FactSet and say, okay, we know what's the carbon footprint, it does matter, and it also matters it matters a lot to our employees. So when you think about talent, you also have to make sure that the company you're building and how you're focused on this, resonates with the people that you're hiring. And I think the next generation of talent isn't going to put up with a company that does not take these things seriously.
Not only the employees, but the investors, right?
The investors, absolutely. And clients, too. So clients are, so it's the supply chain, right? We're going to be part of that supply chain. So how are we behaving, as a firm in the supply chain? Whether it's environmental, social, governance, all three of those pieces. And the S is becoming more and more important, I think, with the focus on diversity, obviously, equity and inclusion. So that's been, something that really emerged over the last 2 years, right? Even more so, in addition to what we're all dealing with in terms of, figuring out how to work in the pandemic. So,
yeah. So the private markets. This is a good question. Is like the theme of private markets and the data there, and you're entering the space, and it's the larger question for your company overall.
Yeah. So we see more and more firms getting into the private market space, right? So a lot of the large asset owners have already gone there, and sort of we're dealing with that. But almost every institutional asset manager, right, of any scale, is thinking about how do they build a more of an alternative strategy. And for us, it makes sense to get into it because A, that's where a lot of the investment's going, but B, we can combine private and public data together, which more people are going to want to look at from an analytics standpoint. That's a longer game, but we think that's where we can help. But again, it's that whole platform strategy of all of this data is interlinked in one way, shape, or form. So if you connect it together well for people, there's going to be a need for it in the future.
And did you say the amount of private data is?
It's about 100 times.
100.
We think it is.
100 times.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In total or by
total.
Entity?
Just in total, yeah.
Just in total.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a business strategy question, and I asked this of our friend. I think our friend Dan Draper of S&P DJI, your friend, my friend, our friend. Right. I asked this. Is your like you're entering the private space and there are incumbents there?
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like in the Wall Street Journal today, they're talking about private credit, and I look at the data and I look at who the source is, who's footnoted there. So in the private market space, there's some incumbents. Is your business overall an oligopoly? Is there an oligopoly in the? Do you think of it in those terms that FactSet versus its competitors? Is it an oligopoly?
Do you mean two by oligopoly?
More than one.
Yeah, there's a lot of choice for all of you, right? So there's 4 firms that are of our scale, I believe, right, in terms of having the amount of data, right, that someone wants, and then there's a longer tail of stuff by workflow. So I do believe, as clients or consumers of data and technology, there's a tremendous amount of choice out there. And I think most firms actually like to have some redundancy anyway. There are pockets, right, where there might only be one, and that obviously creates some friction. But I think it's a fair playing field.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Right. I noted in the part of the headline for your company is the signing of the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. Right.
Yeah, so lots of companies have done that.
I was going to say that may not be there's many signatories to that, but what I did see was the fact that you have on the women on boards and a winning company, right? Your board chair is
Robin.
As a female.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that a more prominent accolade for you guys, that?
I think we still have a long way to go, right? FactSet and every company that's out there. So, I made a bigger commitment to this a few years ago. We have a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, and we had a multi-pronged program here, and we've invested a lot in that team. We're trying to put our money where our mouth is and walk the talk, basically, right? So some things I'm proud of are, we joined, we're one of probably only 40 or 50 companies to make a commitment where we're with MLT, Management Leadership of Tomorrow, Black Equity at Work certified. So that's a commitment from me that we're going to have a multi-phase program to make sure that, we're doing everything we can for our Black colleagues and from an equity standpoint and making FactSet, an attractive place to work. So we've made some great progress there. We joined, so related to what you mentioned, there's also the CEO Action for Racial Equity, and we created 2 fellowships there. So we have 2 fellowships where employees can go and get sort of full comp and ben for 18 months and be guaranteed their jobs after the fellowship's over, but they're working on public policy, at sort of the state level to try to advance things. We've done a lot of training, unconscious bias training. We've built, I think, a very good business resource group program globally. And we published our numbers for the first time last year, which I think is going to become table stakes. I don't know what the numbers are, maybe a third of companies are publishing, what their statistics are, but at least, the numbers are out there. We're about to publish our second report. But it's a very complicated issue, and it's one that's going to take a lot of intentionality, a lot of courage by a lot of people to really move us forward. But I'll be the first to say that, in financial services and technology, the numbers are not good. And all of us have a part to play here in making things better for the future.
That's very well said.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
I went to, I was at a dinner, I won't say with what firm, but it was a lot of senior people, CEOs, and there were probably 40 men there, and there was 1 woman in the audience. So that, to me, was shocking today even. I know the numbers are bad, but to me that really was stark, honestly, to see that. So.
Yeah, agreed wholeheartedly, and I'm proud of CFA Institute with its effort in creating a DEI code, right? And we are coming to the asset management side, to the data analytic research vendors, et cetera, with a DE&I code. And it's aspirational, and it recognizes that each firm is at a different stage and different size and different resources to deploy in this, but we need and want, right? I define it as a pipeline issue, and I think you were talking about that.
Yeah, right? You're absolutely right. So I know Chicago they did a really good job working with community colleges, but we're based in Norwalk, Connecticut. There's a great community college, Norwalk Community College. So I'm working with one of our employees in creating a program where we can bring on technical talent into our company with 2 years degree, not 4 years degree. And historically, FactSet had not done that. We'd only hired people typically out of university, and that it's going to have to be something at that level, I think, and companies are going to have to get involved at the local level to create pipelines of talent that way, and it's a long game. It's going to take a while. So.
It is a long game, but it has to be thoughtful, right, and intentional and purposeful. And I think we're seeing it in Chicago. It takes time.
Yeah.
We have the Economic Club of Chicago has the CEO of Walgreens Boots Alliance speaking, and it's a virtual event. And this is a woman of color who came from Starbucks, and we reached out as a society to a couple of our partners. Right, we're involved with 2 local organizations that are working on this. And I said, do you have students that want to do it, that will see a woman of color, a CEO, being celebrated and being in a public figure? Right. And they said, absolutely. Can we take advantage of that? Yep. So it truly is. Let's talk about a few current events, and I know you might not be able to comment entirely on some of the things that are happening here, but FDS entered the S&P 500 on September 20th, I think it was.
That might be right. Yeah, it was end of last year.
Well, was it a big celebration for you?
I think it was. People. I got Teams messages from people that have been at FactSet, like, this is like the greatest day of my career, and it really. It's 42 years of people dedicated to our company that made that. I wasn't sure it would happen, but we certainly, had reached that scale, and it's a great milestone for the company.
It is a milestone.
Yeah,
right.
It's really, really good, and I think gives us more visibility with the market and with our clients, which we like to.
Well, you guys were founded in '78 out of a company, right?
Yep.
And the story, at least on Wiki, says that it was two people came out of Wall Street, right? And that the original first product was
a set of facts, a fact set. So it was just 4 pages of financial data that was delivered by bike messenger. Yeah. So.
Delivered by bike messenger. Is that such a new? That seems like a New York City story. Yeah. So from that to the cloud, let me work a question in here with respect to the cloud. And there was a question about Snowflake.
Right.
So
sure.
we might get a little technical here, maybe, but maybe can you talk about that?
Sure. So, I think I talked about opening up the platform. So we invested 2.5 years ago in creating a lot more APIs and being a lot more agnostic to where our data went. And it was clear to us that clients are going to want to consume data and analytics in new ways, right? Not just through a screen anymore. There's probably at least 1 million or so screens globally. But if you assume that, hiring is going to be flat, let's say, within asset management, but asset management's going to grow, more enterprise solutions and different ways of consuming value are going to be necessary. So, Snowflake was a great example where we got in early. We met with them. We saw a lot of demand, particularly at the larger firms that were trying to rationalize their own data spend and data management costs in Snowflake. So, we've worked with them. We've put up all of our content into that environment. We've put up what we call concordance as a service. So the techniques we use to connect data, we make those available to clients in Snowflake. And even if it's their own data and it's not stuff we have, we will help them with that process. So that's been great for our CTS business, which is really us selling data and analytics outside of the screen. And now we've done the same thing with Amazon. So we were first in Snowflake in our space.
You are.
First in the Amazon data exchange. That happened, I think, a few months ago. And we're talking to all these types of firms because we know most of us are going to the public cloud. It's a bit of a learning for everyone, I think, right?
Yeah.
But we got to meet our clients where they are, and it's clear to us that most are, except for a few countries, are heading in that direction. And it really removes a lot of friction from the data discovery process and the sales process. So it makes things more efficient. If you tried to call us to look at data, a few years ago, your procurement team would have to say, okay, we're going to get these, we want these feeds, spin up some servers, FactSet sends them. It could be months before you're actually analyzing the data as a CFA. Whereas now, we can turn you on today. In Snowflake, you can look at everything we have You can code against it with Python, whatever you want to do, Tableau, and then make a decision as to what you want to purchase after you've had a chance to play around with it. So,
I mean, that is a remarkable development, right?
yeah, so that's the friction that's been removed there, and the speed to market is, at least 10 times probably. So
That's the pushback to an asset management CEO saying, my data cost is but the speed of development is enhanced remarkably. A couple other current events, and I know this you're probably going to need to can't say much, Chris, but you acquired the licensing of CUSIP from S&P. I think maybe with their acquisition of IHS Markit. So CUSIP is, I remember the question coming up. It's like, who owns CUSIP, right?
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating. It's a marquee. Do you see it as a really marquee business opportunity for you? Could you talk a little bit?
Yeah, we
that?
see a lot of parallels with CUSIP with FactSet and CTS, which is our data, selling data and data management services. It fits in very nicely with that theme. That's the fastest growing piece of FactSet, and the data management services piece is the fastest growing piece of that piece of our business. So it's also a subscription business. It's about 85% subscription. FactSet's over 98% subscription business. So there's a lot to like about being a subscription business in terms of the stickiness. So it was opportunistic. I mean, I don't think that like S&P particularly wanted to sell it, but as part of the merger with IHS Markit, I think it was the regulators required it. So we were happy to have the chance to bid on it and compete.
It's a huge opportunity, right? It's a huge.
Yeah.
It's like I was an investor in Penske Automotive Group, and they said, Chris, the Mercedes dealership came up in Greenwich, Connecticut, came up for sale, and it's a lifetime type of opportunity.
Yeah, those don't come around that often.
It's a marquee property.
Yeah.
Near and dear to my heart, you became an issuer of debt.
Yes, that was an adventure over the last few weeks. So to fund this acquisition, we decided to go through that process, which was interesting, like working with the ratings agencies, getting a rating for the first time. So we got investment grade ratings from both Moody's and Fitch, which we were very happy about, and I think had a successful offering, I think, this week. So.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did. I watched it unfold with interest, very much so. So we have a question that we need to get in here, and that is with a professional development lens on it, and that is. At our Business of Data, we explored the concept of I call it a version of the MBA CFA question, the MBA CFA, which do you do first, which was a ubiquitous question throughout the years, and now it's I think the question has changed a great deal, and it gets to getting in with the charter is one thing, but in the question that our panel expertly handled was. Do you take an investment professional, a CFA, and do you teach her to code, right, the hard skills, or is it better, to take somebody with the hard skill, the quant analysis, quant methods, and teach them capital markets and investments? And there may not be a one size fits all, right? But and you come from the STEM side of things.
I think you got to do both, right? I think because you want that diversity, and that's how we're thinking about our business. So traditionally, I would say on the service side, we've hired a lot of people with finance degrees, accounting degrees, and they've gone on to economics degrees, gone on to get their CFA. And we've hired a few people with STEM backgrounds or more liberal arts backgrounds, but I do think there's got to be more of a balance there.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got to have an interest in financial markets, otherwise it's not going to work. So.
Yeah, and I think we had a very good one of our panelists had a very good comment, and that was the investment person doesn't have to be the best coder in the world. It's maybe the logical thinking about how you're going to that coding gives you in terms of querying data and eliciting actionable items from the data, right, in a methodical way. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try and get a few questions here. We're getting a little late on the hour. I don't know, you want to take this. What trends are you watching on data sets for quantitative equities? Is that, I mean, you must see the amount of data, right? Yeah. And somebody marketing a data set, right? I know a quant manager in town said he gets X number of emails a day, right? From people who are inventing data sets, right?
I think our focus there has been setting up a new environment for quants. So we've built something called our quant research environment, which is all next generation tools. I mean, the assumption is that there's always going to be a new data set tomorrow. So if you have the right tools for people in terms of how they want to code and you give them options in terms of integrating the data, that's probably a better solution than what we had historically, which is still a very good product if you're subscribing to all the other pieces of our workflow. But a lot of quants aren't, right? They want to kind of do their own thing and sort of hook it up how they want to hook it up within the rest of their firm.
Okay. This gets a little deep in the weeds on ESG, but let me get the question on the table, Phil. How does FactSet plan to measure and report on U.S. companies' progress on goals in sustainability reports as we gradually transition to a zero carbon society?
So again, I mean, it's a very general answer, I apologize, but I think we've got all the choice there in terms of the data, and we can provide good tools. So we can give you the picks and shovels to do it. I don't know if FactSet itself is going to be the one like saying like these companies are doing better than other companies.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot, and we're near the top of the hour. We have an audience online. I have just a minute or two. I wanted to share with you what I found about your local employee population. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. We have FactSetters in the room. I was looking at their LinkedIn profiles, and I probably looked at 30 or 40, Phil. And the number of people that were reskilling and upskilling themselves was remarkable. It was really significant. And the other aspect that
hopefully they're not all looking for jobs.
The society's going into the executive search business is what I wanted to leave you with. Yeah. But also, no, the fact that they are doing that, it speaks to your culture of
it's a learning culture for sure. Yeah.
It is a learning culture. Yeah, that is dramatic. But the other aspect of it that I noticed was their community involvement.
Yeah, so we have a very strong heritage in CSR, and I met with a lot of employees yesterday who can't wait to get back to CSR events. And we need events like that to, I think, bring people, have a reason to come in and meet with each other in person. Because again, the days of just coming in to do your job and then having those kind of collisions with people randomly are over. We've got to build stuff around that. So I think that's, we're really looking, I'm actually doing that in LA this week with our LA team. So we're going to do an event that way. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's tremendous.
Yeah. But we have a great culture. I'm very proud of who we hire and how we work with our clients. We really have this client service mentality all through the organization, and we're a curious bunch, right? We like to solve problems, and just thinking about that in the future and how we keep that going is, I'm literally spending about 75% of my time this quarter on that, just because I think every company's at an inflection point, right, in terms of talent, and in the third year going into this, like how we all solve for this is going to be critically important. So. Yeah.
Well, I have to have one public service announcement, and that is thanks for everyone who attended on the webcast, and here you will get a survey questionnaire. Phil, it is remarkable to meet you. We really appreciate what you do in DE&I and for the CFA Charter, and you are welcome back to our membership and guests on our stage. When you come up with something that is new and you want to get it in front of a sophisticated audience,
sure,
you are welcome here at any time.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you all, and thank you for those that are clients, and FactSet's hiring. So.
you.